You said something interesting about good decisions should be free, bad should be expensive. That's kind of the basic value-based insurance design. And we've been fighting that for a while, trying to show that PT is a high-value, low-cost alternative. Virginia Mason showed that with spinal care. Yet we're not making inroads. Why is that? We still have high co-pays. We have people who are disincented to use PT. In fact, surgery and opioids are cheaper, so they go that route. How do we change that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the area that to me is the ripest opportunity, I think these changes sort of happen as a little snowball and grow, and that's what you see in a lot of things where there is that kind of change. And so I believe the employer arena is a big one. One of the reasons I got so fixated on ERISA is I think that, you know, patterns are very entrenched until they aren't. And it's very comfortable to just continue doing what you're doing, and everything baked into our system is designed to drive up costs. So you're on the losing end of that because you actually bring costs down. And so when that changes, so I believe that having a target on CEOs and board members' backs is very significant motivation, like that they will actually wake up and start to pay attention. Others are doing it proactively and have been doing it as they either for survival because they have tight margins or they've seen an opportunity. And so that's, again, a big part of why I did the film was I was like, how do you change this in an accelerated manner? Because it's so entrenched. And that's where the combination of the film and the Institute, again, you look at building, you know, that's a very entrenched industry too. For a long time, people built in a certain way, and it's not like you just tear down all the buildings overnight. And so that was a 20-year switch, even though there was things you could do 20 years ago in green building. And so those are the type of things that the word got out progressively, and just the fringe knew about it, maybe 10 to 20 years ago, but then more and more, and then generationally. Like if I asked millennials, have you heard of either LEED or Fair Trade? I bet 90% of them would have heard of them. And more people get those things. And so it's one of these things that if there's one unique skill that I have, it's thinking in industry ecosystems and how to shift them and what are the points of leverage to do that. And I've done that once in healthcare for a much less important thing, just a technology thing, and then digital media. And so that's really, I think you have to shift the overall system, and you do it in different ways. I think the carrot and stick with employers is the most movable one. And I think it can be a great example. I mean, much the way healthcare has worked is CMS decides something and then it rolls downhill. Why does that have to be the case? If you look at, that was actually the way with technology. A lot of the most advanced technology used to start at Department of Defense, and then to large companies, and then smaller companies, and then to consumers. A lot of these things are going the reverse direction now. They're starting at the consumer level, and then they're moving up. And so that's where the bottom up is a big piece of it. And they're little spot fires. They're sort of hard to see at first, but you want to do the opposite of spot fires. You want, that you would do in the forest fire or whatever. You actually like a forest fire to renew an ecosystem. Fires are a part of renewing the ecosystem. And so we want to kind of pour gas on those spot fires of how to do it. And as you share success stories, like the organization that is in Tulsa, they're a heavy manufacturer that's spending 30% less. When their CEO went to a heavy manufacturers meeting of CEOs and told what he was doing and who he was partnering with to do that, it was extraordinary. Like virtually every CEO in that room said, how can I do this tomorrow? Like we're struggling, we may not survive without that. And so that's kind of the good news is there's a lot of companies teetering on survival and also one of the sort of grassroots opportunities I think is around schools for a number of reasons. One, schools are, if you look at, Bill Gates devoted an entire TED talk to how healthcare has devastated education, because most education funding comes at the state level. Healthcare used to be maybe 5 or 10% of the state budget. Now it's 30 or 40%. They can only increase taxes so much, so it's come out of all the social determinants of health, including education. And so, like in Pittsburgh, they decided, we're not going to continue this definition of insanity and just continue to pay more and get less every year. And the unions and management got together and said, you know what, we actually should need to be on the same side of the table. Our foe is the healthcare system, for getting schools properly funded and teachers properly paid. So today they're spending 40% less than their counterparts in Philadelphia. Class sizes are 30% smaller. Teachers are paid better. They have better benefits, 4 times as many librarians. And they did it. And the nice thing about schools is, guess what? A lot of the parents are HR directors, CEOs, business owners, and so on. And so you find these little pockets. It's like civil rights, and food. These things didn't just happen blanket all across the country. There's these particular geographies, I think, will step up and are stepping up. Or particular sectors. So shining a light, using modern methods of getting messages out there. I mean, there's ways to incredibly cost effectively, we can target every public company board member. Like, we can very confidently reach them with, hey, did you know these companies are doing this? And by the way, there's going to be a target on your back. And starting to wake up people. So, we're using some of the modern, communication methods. So those things like that. It's not an easy, quick answer, obviously, but I think that's how you go about it.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes.
We just have a question about some of the switch that we see over to the health insurers as the TPAs. A lot of employers I talk to, one in particular, a large employer, they're self-insured, but they have the Blues as their TPA, and there is the belief that the Blue is going to help solve their problem. And I'm trying, what's the hole in that argument with the TPA being the answer to their problem as opposed to the providers that are really providing?
Well, that gets back to what we talked about. There's no incentive for the TPA to control costs.
Yeah, particularly the one associated with an insurance company, the ASO flavor of TPA. Some of the independent TPAs, in fact, there's one based here called Continental Benefits. That's sort of the next generation one, and they are transparent and they don't play games. Like PPO networks where they're kind of this charade of getting a discount, but I can give you a 90% discount off anything. I don't care. It's like if I get to determine what the denominator is on that calculation, I'll give you 90% discount on anything. And that's what we can do. And so that's what you see the organizations working typically with an independent TPA that isn't disincentive to get costs in order. And that's a big part of it, is they need to realize, the whole of the argument is, where is the argument? There's no evidence. Like, if they have evidence of how they, and they've had, 30 years, 50 years, like, they had their shot. Like, okay. There's others who are actually doing it and have done it, and it's not some Star Trek thing, it's being done today. It's not the mainstream, I get it, but it's not rocket science either. I mean, basically, they just have to have a stiff constitution. And then, part of what I'm going to put in this book is how you communicate with employees. Everybody is afraid of change. And I understand it. Like, if every year the annual benefits discussion with employees is, hey guys, here's how things are going to get better. You're going to pay more and get less. And we have this new wellness program that we're going to poke, prod, and pry you and lead to a bunch of overtreatment. And when you talk to sophisticated benefits purchasers, only about 7% of their spend are on things that are prevented through those Tron Flag programs. And so they have to just like take a step back and say, okay, we need to rethink this from the ground up. How would you do this de novo? And again, you allow people to, if they want to stay on their current plan, they can do it, but it's going to be the same drill that they're going to get. And over time, word spreads and people are like, wow, this is actually way better. And that's how it sort of transitions over time, and the steam and oil and candles kind of wane and the electricity sort of grows.
Any questions? Gonna go Jerry, then Rich.
I want to, in light of throwing gasoline on the fire, can you chase Mike Eisenhower?
Rich, go ahead. Yeah.
I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit. I was moved by an NPR piece that I heard recently that there's a Harvard physician who studies healthcare, and he purposely put himself and his family on a high deductible HSA plan. Maybe you heard that.
Yep, I read that.
I thought it was fascinating. One of the questions that he posed, or that I took from the piece, was that I think there's a danger in considering the patient a consumer. That as a consumer, we want to pay less for a lot of things. We do want high value. There's going to be a lot of discussion about value over today and tomorrow probably. But it also pointed out the fact that people might not seek care when they should as a result of not wanting that ER visit for $2,000 or a specialist visit for $500 that's going to hit their deductible, etc. They're going to be paying a good chunk of that out of the pocket out of the allowed amount. And as a result, it might not be the best thing to promote one of the AAA pillars of population health. That we might actually be just pushing ourselves to a pound of cure rather than an ounce of prevention. Can you comment on the consumer, looking at a patient as a consumer in this environment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for consumer and patient empowerment. I've seen that with the internet. Like, that's a great philosophy in general. But we don't, it's going to take a long time before people are comfortable in that and frankly have the tools to do that. And so that's one reason I focus on employers is the reality is they are picking up the biggest chunk of the healthcare tab today. And so, you know, his example is apropos because he, you know, their high deductible plan is sort of, you know, very typical, but, you know, I think a caveman could have designed a plan better than that. And when I said you make good decisions free or near free, and like this is where Rosen is a great example because they've been at it a long time. A lot of just common sense. And they looked at, so they built this clinic and, you know, it's free primary care. It's great. No copay. Well, they weren't getting quite as much use as they wanted. And they found out that these are hourly workers, some who didn't have their own transportation, 35% of the workforce are Asian immigrants. And so they realized, oh, we need to do two things. We need to offer transportation for them to get there, and they need to be on the clock because that would be food off the table for them if they went and dealt with their health issue. And so you know, and like in the case of this Tulsa company's manufacturer that I wrote about, Innovation Controls, and I know the benefits consultants work with them, and I'm like, wow, you know, and one of the things I mentioned is pricing failure, and he defines pricing failure as the gap between what's a fair market clearing price and the so-called PPO discount, not the bogus bill charges garbage, but, you know, even the so-called PPO discount. That's that gap called pricing failure. They removed 97% of the pricing failure in their company. It's like, wow, how the heck did they do that? And I was in Tulsa speaking to that. He's like, hey, do you want to have breakfast, you know, with the leader there? I'm like, yeah, I would. And so this kind of gets to some of the consumerism because we haven't, you know, made it easy. But in their case, I said, well, how did you do this? Well, one was if they gave people the choice, and so he described some different examples, and they started with just pulling employees in kind of lunch and learn, and just kind of did a little 101. Bob's got to get a rotator cuff procedure. Here's what the bogus bill charges are. Here's the so-called PPO discount. Here's what that's what we pay. Here's what you pay. Kind of broke it down or we have this new benefit. Because we remove all this brain damage on the providers, they will give us a typically 40-50% less than that so-called PPO discount. And if you choose that, you don't have to, but if you choose that, we waive deductibles, copays, all that. And the only paperwork you have to deal with is, if you want, you can respond to the thank you survey. And there's a concierge line. And so the company wins big. Providers are very happy. Some of those providers are getting 70% of their revenue through non-insurance direct contracts. But the best part of the story was, he said, I was there in November. It was like a couple weeks before. He goes, I'll tell you something that's ever happened to me before. I was at a high school football game, and this family surrounded me and gave me a big hug. It's like, well, that's great. Why are you hugging me? And turns out the father had to have a surgery. And in their old plan, they had a max out of pocket, I think either $2,500 or $3,000. 70% of American households have less than $1,000 in savings. Math doesn't work. And he really needed this procedure done. So he was going to do it. It was going to be no Christmas for the family, financial ruin, probably bankruptcy for them. Instead, they had Christmas that year. He's returned to health because they did it. So you have to have thoughtful plan design in that. And most consumers are at the point where they're not going to design the plan. But they can understand basics of these things. And like when, I was talking to Kenneth Aldridge, who's the medical director over at Rosen Medical Centers, about what they do with their employees, and specifically around PT. Well, they have, basically lifting clinics and things like that, or they're finding we're seeing a rise in hypertension. What's going on? Oh, there's a new supervisor over there that's causing some stress. And so it does require some thought. Just blunt instrument, high deductible plans don't get the job done. But also, you not only have these incredibly high cost things, and then you have the high deductible. So you then can't afford these things that should be affordable. But when you actually have a good plan design, you're spending much less. I'm on something that the typical family of four is spending $25,000 on benefits. We're paying dramatically less. And so we can have self-insure for these other things. We have that. Now, I'm self-employed, so I don't have an employer. So employers are self-insuring, and then they can do that well. They want a productive workforce. They want happy employees. They want retention. Rosen, they've got 1/6 of the turnover that their competitors do, so it's good for their business. So anyway, I can go on and on, but it's about it.
So my job is to kind of keep us on time here. So we got just sturdy if it's quick, and then we'll finish with the keynote here.
Thanks. Yeah, sturdy. The question that you put, I'm sure you answered.
They'll make sure it is. Just give me a kick.
You talked about PPO pricing and further discounts and what have you, and we've been in an environment where, at least in private practice, many of us have seen severe downward pressures on pricing for us years, to the point where in many cases it's untenable, it doesn't cover costs and have it. Under those same plans, or many of those same plans, many of those same employers and payers and for TPAs, whatever, they're paying the hospitals double or more than what we're paying private practitioners for the same codes, same drugs, same everything. What are your thoughts on how we can get some parity around it?
Yeah, when I talked to Kenneth Aldridge, and I had mentioned I was going to be here today, We said, you need to tell those PTs, they need to get out and speak to the employers in their community. You've got a solution to one of their biggest cost items that is great for their business, and you need to get out in the community, whether it's a Rotary meeting or you're on the sideline at a soccer game or whatever, that it requires that outreach, and people need to get educated. You need to sell your category before you sell yourself.